Today,
Yep.
we have another caregiver, and I will hand it over to her to kind of introduce herself.
Okay. My name is Lucilia, and I am in Andover, Hampshire, in England.
Awesome. All right. So, how long have you been a caregiver? And if you're comfortable, if you can just walk me through the diagnoses experience.
Yep, I have been a caregiver now for about 6 years, coming towards 7 now. It started with my father was living abroad at the time, and he was doing some pretty crazy stuff. He actually was talking about killing himself at the dinner table once, and I thought, hang on a minute. What is going on? So we had a very long chat. He was becoming almost agoraphobic, didn't want to go out. He was a shadow of his former self. And I kept asking him to go to the doctor. He didn't want to go. Eventually, he agreed to come to the UK to see a doctor with me. And he never went back. He's been with me ever since, up until obviously he ended up in hospital a few weeks ago. But yeah, he's been with me ever since, really. So he was diagnosed, didn't even take 6 months after he came over to the UK. He was first diagnosed with chronic depression, and it was only after the medication for the depression started that you then could see there was something else really not right there at all. And that's when obviously I took him back to the doctor, and we went through all of the tests and bits and pieces, and the very basic dementia test that they did, he didn't score very highly on. And it was really basic stuff, it was days of the week, the month, can you subtract numbers from this number, stuff that, to be fair, a lot of ordinary people would struggle with as well, but it became very apparent that there was something horribly wrong there. And yeah, he's been with me ever since.
Do you think that the depression was kind of like hiding the fact that your father was trying
Yes.
to get
Oh
him?
gosh. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. And he's been on antidepressants ever since. I mean, in fairness, if I had dementia, I probably would be very depressed as well. Who'd want to live with that? I mean, in the beginning, it was absolutely. And in the beginning, it was manageable. He was still driving. He was doing a lot of the things that you and I would, take for granted and carry on as normal. But it didn't take long. They took his driving license away, which was a major blow because he was still insistent he could drive. But it didn't take long before a lot of the very basic skills went downhill. So and the stages that you go, or not you go through, but the stages that they go through, you almost are lulled into a full sense of security, and you think, yeah, he's doing all right, and then all of a sudden something will happen. You think, oh my God, now what? So to me, it's a bit like, I don't know, I guess working with children, you think you've got to the bottom of something and found a solution to whatever the current problem is, and then something else comes up and you think, right, now we've got to change that. So something as simple as they forget their keys, so you put a sign up on the door that says don't forget your keys, but then they don't read the sign that says don't forget your keys, so they forget it anyway. So you think you've got something sorted, and then something else comes up. So that's how I found dementia, full stop. Once you think you've got a solution to a problem, there'll be another one literally the next day. So
and is this something that you had to experience like right away 6 years ago, like when he was diagnosed?
yeah.
Was he pretty far down?
Yeah, it happened it happened fairly quickly. I mean, the stage he's at now, he's not good at all now. But the beginning stages, he could, once they took his driving license away, he could still use a bus, he could still use a microwave, he could still, he could get by. That's been gone a long time, a long time. I probably would say a good couple of years now, he's been unable to. I look back and I think he was using a computer, he was using an iPad like we are now, he was using a mobile phone. Those skills have been gone a very long time.
So during those 6 years, did he live with you?
He did. He did. For the first 18 months he lived with us, which was it was quite trying, I've got to be honest. I think when we knew things were getting very difficult, it was actually on Boxing Day, one Christmas, and he was not having a good day. And so we said we were going to go out to the beach for a walk, and he said he would stay here. So I told him that the meal was in the microwave in a black dish. And all he had to do, I'd already programmed the microwave, and I said, all you've got to do is put it in the microwave and press start. So when we came, it's a terrible smell. My microwave's in the garage, a terrible smell in the garage. And I said, how are you doing? You all right? He said, yes, yes, yeah. Back then he could change TV channels. He could do all of those things. And he said, I just, the meal I had, it was very, very strange. I thought, oh my God, what the hell's he eating? It transpired that he had taken a tub of ice cream. How it didn't blow up, I do not know. He took the lid off, to be fair, but he'd microwaved a pot of ice cream for 8 minutes. So it had exploded inside the microwave, this whole new pot of ice cream, and it had stuck to the roof of the microwave like stalactites. But the best bit was he'd eaten it with a slice of bread because he thought he was eating soup. And he said it was a very strange sweet soup that he ate. Of course, I was thinking, what soup have you eaten? It's only when we went and looked, I went, oh my God, he microwaved ice cream for 8 minutes. Okay. It took a long time to clean the microwave, I will just say. But that's when we realised, you know, even leaving him now in the house, he wouldn't lock the door if he went out. Yeah, he was doing some very strange things. So he was with us for 18 months. And then a social worker got involved and said that for his safety and sanity and for ours, he really needed to be moved. And he moved out, I think it was literally just, it wasn't long after that, to be fair. A flat came up and he moved. He was only up the road from me. But back then, he could get himself up and dressed in the morning. He could, you know, get a drink. He could sort his breakfast out. It was a good year before we became aware that he was needing. So then at that point I intervened and I would go in. I mean, I've changed my job twice because of him. I would go in every morning. I would get him dressed. And it used to be you could lay clothes out and he would just get dressed. That didn't last very long. Even that was becoming. So I would go in every morning, get him up, get him dressed, get him fed and make sure he was ready. Because I found that he was not getting dressed, not washing. So I think that's where you almost end up having to intervene, really, I guess.
Yeah.
So
And you mentioned your job, how has that worked? Like, can you give me a brief description?
Employers can be very difficult, and I understand. I've been an employer in the past, and you know, if everybody in your workplace needed to leave work because they were taking care of somebody, you'd have no staff left. So I understand it from that point of view. However, it was becoming more and more difficult for me to manage my dad. So I changed jobs, and I went to work for an office. Funnily enough, ironically, the guy I was working for, his mother also had dementia. So he had an understanding. But back then, it was just a case of me going in to get my dad dressed. Things were okay. But of course, like lots of people with dementia, who obviously have it for a long time, because my dad was quite young when he was diagnosed. He was only diagnosed at 65. As time goes on, he was starting to wander. He would go missing. The police would be called, and then I would get a phone call, please could you come get your dad? And it was becoming very apparent with my employer that they didn't want me to keep getting up and leaving to go and pick my dad up. Then I got to come back. So I made a decision again to change jobs again last September. And, you know, last September, Dad was a very different kettle of fish. He was a different year. He still needed me to go in, still didn't need to do all of his bills and paperwork. But obviously, as time has gone on, and I think about last Christmas, we realised that, you know, again, we had taken a turn. He was having carers going in most days. So he was moved into a warden flat. He lived in a we call it a warden facility. He basically had a warden there Monday, Friday. She'd be there between, I think it was 9 and 3 or 4, but that wasn't enough. So he then moved again, and he'd been in there just over a year by the time he ended going up into hospital. And the flat where he moved to, that second one, it was great, but the care that he required was becoming so much that even they couldn't manage him. So I guess, in a way, Corona did us a favour with my dad. I don't know if you could say that. but I will. But you know, if my dad had a breakdown that he'd had, yeah, and unfortunately when he had his breakdown, he smashed a window, and there was all sorts of things that went on that week. But had that have happened and we weren't in the world of corona, I think that he possibly might have just been moved, or maybe not shelved as it were, but they just would have looked for another care home or another facility to put him into. But because of corona, they weren't allowed to leave him there, so they had to take him to hospital, and that has sort of propelled him to where he is now. He was reassessed, reanalyzed, and interestingly, since he's now in, I guess you call it a mental institution. He was sectioned. We had various different sections here. He had a section 2, which meant they could hold him for a month, but they extended it. And amazingly, they put him on anti-hallucinogenics while he was there, because lots of people with dementia, they hallucinate. We've had to take all the mirrors down in his flat, and you know, there's a long line of things that have gone on. But they've also now diagnosed him with type 2 bipolar. And I did ask the doctor the other day, how would anybody know that they had type 2? And she said, unless you were seeing a psychiatrist for anything, or you were seeking advice because you were having episodes in your life, you probably would have had it undetected, and he's probably had it all of his life. So I thank corona for a few things.
Oh my God. I wonder if it explains anything just from years ago. I don't even know how you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, some of his lifestyle choices, definitely. When we sort of went back over things with the doctor, I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I can see that. So yeah, it explains a few things, but unfortunately, with regards to the dementia, you know, it won't change anything. All it just means is that he's now not taking anti-hallucinogenic drugs, and in the long list of the drugs that they take, I think that's good. It's one less tablet, one less pill to be taking.
Yeah. In terms of just task management, are you the sole caregiver for your father?
Yeah, I do have 2 siblings, but unfortunately they live abroad, and they were not in a position to really reach out and help. So it's always just been me, which is ironic, because if I ever go on holiday to social services, they'll say, and who else can we ring if there's an emergency? And I have to go, nobody. Just me. So yeah, and I can't be alone. You know, I can't be the only person, the only, you know, child, or the only partner or spouse or whatever. I can't be the only person who is just me. So yes, it's just me.
How has
I'm
that
sure I'm
been
not
for
alone, as I say.
you? Yeah, definitely.
How's that what?
How has that been for you, just being the sole caregiver?
It's
You've
had its
always sort of
moments.
support.
Yeah, it's had its moments. I mean, my husband's fantastic. My kids have been like, well, I say kids, they're 18 and 20. They've been beyond patient. And it's sad, really, because my son remembers my dad, how he used to be. My daughter doesn't remember anything about him at all. All she remembers is him having dementia, because obviously she was a lot younger when he was diagnosed. But yeah, I mean, my family, my husband and my kids are really, you know, really fantastic. But what can my siblings do? They're so far away. So someone's got to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what would you say was probably maybe the most rewarding thing about being a caregiver?
Oh God, that's a difficult one.
Very much easier, much harder than the challenging question.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, now there isn't much that's rewarding. I'm not going to lie to you, because we're over the other side of this now. And when my dad was sectioned, the doctor at the time, she said to me, you know, how do you feel? Are you okay? And I said, whoa, let me stop you. If my dad 3 or 4 years ago was where we are now, I think it would have really broken me, really been very difficult. But I think you come so far, and my dad, towards the latter stages before he was taken into hospital, he was becoming quite aggressive towards me, quite rude. I've been called most names under the sun, I think, really now. So I'm sort of, you can detach yourself. I think it's quite easy to detach yourself now. Well, I find it is. But the most rewarding is when he used to apologise, because, you know, I'd feel for him. It must have been awful, because they have those lucid moments. And when he used to have those lucid moments, and he used to get quite emotional, and say thank you. And you think, oh God, you know, wow, you're actually acknowledging what I'm doing for you, because nobody sees what you do. Nobody, you know, there's no witnesses of what you're doing apart from them. And of course, 99% of the time, they take it for granted. I don't really think they care half the time. It's just there's somebody there to facilitate their lives, because obviously they're not in control anymore. And that must be hard. I mean, you know, I don't envy that. But yeah, it's when he used to say, thank you, which for my dad was quite a major ordeal, I can assure you. But yeah, when he used to thank me, it was like, wow, okay. But yeah, I mean, back in the early stages of him being diagnosed, I used to take him backwards and forwards to Portugal, and he used to really appreciate that. So that made it worthwhile. But the last trip that we did was April 2019, and that was horrendous. And he had no recollection of going at all. And I sort of got back and breathed a sigh of release and said, I'm never taking him ever again. Because he couldn't remember. I thought, I don't know why, you know, why I'm putting myself through this. It was so stressful to take someone with dementia that far down the line, you know, simple commands to get on and off the plane. My goodness, I can't even tell you, it was just horrendous, the whole journey. But we had, again, some beautiful moments where he danced and sang to songs that he remembered. But as quickly as that happened, equally, he'd sit on the sofa and say, I don't want to eat, I don't want to do this anymore. And you think, God, you were so good a minute ago. But yeah, years ago, he used to thank me, and that was worth it.
I'm sure if he had any recollection, he would still thank you.
Oh, I'm sure he would. Oh God, 100%. I'm sure he would. But yeah, I'm in no two minds about that. But yeah, that's what made it worthwhile.
So with your clearly vast experience, what advice would you offer to somebody who has recently become a caregiver? Loaded question, I know.
I would honestly say you're going to probably discover patience you never knew you had. I would honestly say, I've got a lot of patience now. My family may say otherwise, but I definitely, you've, like I said earlier, you think you've got the solution to a problem, and then something else comes up. So there is, I would honestly say, when my dad was first diagnosed, the doctors are very good to give you a list of literature that you should read for people with dementia. They are the most depressing books. I would honestly say don't read any of them. Some books I got about 5 pages in, I was like, oh my God, pass the knife. This is just, I mean, I would not want that for anybody. So I would say don't read anything, but just go with what works and go with your instincts. And if you think it's working for you, funnily enough, the doctor I spoke to the other day, she gave me some really good advice when they were talking about where my dad's going to be moved to. And there's only 2 care homes that they're looking into for my dad. And I said to her, you know, how do I pick? Because of course, the things that you and I might think, oh, you know, I want a sea view, or I want to be near the woods, or I want to be able to hear birds. And she said, stop. You're the person with dementia. You've got power of attorney. You need to decide what you would want for you. And she said, if you're happy with it, that's good enough for you. It's good enough for them. And I thought, wow, no one's ever said that to me. So I would definitely say, if you're happy with what you're doing, then it's going to work for them, definitely. But yeah, never argue with them either, ever. It's pointless, absolutely pointless. In the beginning, you do feel like shouting and screaming sometimes, and you just have to go, I'm just going to walk away from that, which is a lot easier said than done. But yeah, definitely. Take it as it comes.
That is very good advice, especially the don't argue with them. Yeah, just from previous interviews and discussions that we've had, that is a big thing. You kind of just let them live in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt. We had one very big row not long after he was diagnosed. And I thought, wow, in years gone by, my dad would not have backed down. And he just sat and he was so silent. And I felt even worse because obviously it was almost like I'd won the argument. And I was like, yeah, I got this one. And I was like, oh, actually, no, he's almost broken because we've had an argument and he didn't have the ammunition to come back at me with. So yeah, I definitely say don't argue. You're wasting energy and time. It's not worth it.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you for that. That is amazing advice, and I'm sure someone
Okay.
will be looking at this and being like, okay, good to know. And speaking of advice, was there anything that you used? Obviously, you did not use those books, but did you go look for support groups or anything earlier on to kind
Yes,
of
I
help
did.
you?
Yep, I did. But I found that most of the groups that were available were predominantly aimed at spouses. And I obviously wasn't a spouse. And I predominantly found that when I only went to a handful of groups in the very, very, very beginning. Most of the people there were considerably older than me. Like some of them were considerably older than my dad, and were almost perplexed that he was there. And I know he found some of the groups that we went to very, very, very difficult because, of course, in the beginning, most people with dementia, they don't believe there's anything wrong with them, understandably, because he'd go to these groups and he'd say, why am I here? Well, I'm not like this person, I'm not like that person. I used to say, but we're all different, you know, everybody in this room is different. It doesn't matter what label you have above you. But of course, when you're 65 and there's a guy who's 85 who's not speaking or doing anything, it must be very daunting to look at that and think, am I going to be like that? I don't know. So yeah, the groups I found in the beginning I struggled with, because, as I say, they were mostly for spouses. I never met any children of people with dementia until my dad moved to his flat where he has recently left. That's where I tend to meet other people. But again, they were like my mother's age. I didn't meet anybody my age taking care of relatives at all. They're probably out working and probably a bit too busy. But yeah, I guess it's, you know, it's unfortunate that my dad was diagnosed, but equally he's very lucky that, you know, somebody stepped up to the plate to help him out, I guess. So, but yeah, prompts, that's the one thing I found when my dad was diagnosed is I used to, like I say, putting a note on the door to say, don't forget your keys. We'd print that out, or like we'd print his photograph out and it was on his front door, so that if he walked past his door, he could see his face, not somebody else's. So I would use prompts. And in the beginning, he could still read. You know, he could still read probably a good 3 years into his diagnosis, and then obviously he lost that. So the ability to read meant that I could leave a note to tell him things, you know, like if I went out or if I'd be back at such and such. But I think the dementia's got to be in the earlier stages for somebody to be able to function with that sort of prompting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you spoke about some tools you've used, such as these notes. Has there been anything technology related that you've used earlier on, or even now?
Earlier on,
Something?
yeah, I mean, earlier on, I would use WhatsApp, I've got to be honest, because my dad was capable of using a phone. But obviously, as time went on, we noticed that he either couldn't answer the phone, or he wouldn't remember how to swipe up the phone. Or so, of course, then you upgrade the phone, because you think, hey, let's get him a phone where you put your thumb on it, or you look at it, and then, you know, again, then he forgets to put his thumb on it, or then he forgets to look at it. I'll give you a good example. Like I bought him an Alexa. I hope one doesn't go off in a minute. I bought him one of those, and of course you'd say to him, "Say Alexa, play me a song." I'm whispering, so I don't want them going off. But you tell it, and of course he'd go. I'd say, "Ask her," and he'd go, "Ask who?" And I go, "Alexa," and he goes, "Who's Alexa?" God. So you know, you roll with it, thinking that you've helped them, and then you just don't know. You think you got to the bottom of one thing, as I say, and another thing comes up. But yeah, I did find printed A4 sheets with things printed on them, like "Don't forget your keys" or "Have you brushed your teeth?" In the beginning, they 100% worked.
Wow. That's crazy, the Alexa thing. That's something that we're looking into.
Yep.
But yeah, we definitely, that challenge is there. Just like not
Yeah,
being
definitely.
used to not seeing somebody there is a big thing.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, the Alexa, my grandfather, not related to my dad, he's got dementia. And so my mother bought one for him. He's considerably older, he's 90. And so what she used to do is she would go on her app, because she lives abroad, and she would make it play music. But then he would go over and start pressing buttons on it. She's got a camera so she can see him. But he'd go over and press buttons. She was like, no pressing buttons. So of course, because there's this thing in the corner of the room making music, and of course they're, like I say, you think you got to the bottom of one thing, something else comes up. So but yeah, I did find, again, music in the beginning. Music was, if ever my dad was not having a good day, I could put music on and he was transported to another world. It was magical. But sadly, again, since things have got worse, particularly in the last, again, since he's ended up in hospital, they've had to restrict the amount of music he gets, because sometimes certain songs would come on and he'd either get frisky, aggressive, and they couldn't quite fathom why. So yeah, you know, again, obviously we've gone on to another level of where he is, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have heard that music plays a big role. It can also take you back to whatever mood you associate it with, which is
huge. And you know, and again, what a wonderful tool to have. But again, and then the frustration, I guess, kicks in now, because he can't express why he might be angry at a song or happy at a song, or but yeah, music up and probably until 6 months ago was, yeah, if I ever wanted it, and I had to play it loud as well, like my husband used to say, please turn that down. Yeah, it had to be loud, really loud, so it could almost drown him out. But yeah, he loved it. Music was a real good one.
Okay, I think our last question would be related to social media and just what role it has played for you in terms of providing support, whether that's emotional support, informational support, or even connecting with other caregivers. How has social media played a role in your life as a caregiver?
It's been, I've got to be honest, I started, sorry, if you hear my dogs barking, I do apologise. It's tea time. Yeah, I in the earlier stages, I decided to start writing a blog. And I found it quite cathartic, I would probably say. I used to write this blog, and in the beginning, I just didn't think anybody was reading it. And as time went on, obviously, when I started writing it, it alerts you how many people are following it. And I found it really quite useful. I do type as I speak, no holds barred. Sometimes I'm sure people think you have to write those words in there. But I found that, for me personally, really, really, really cathartic. And because of the books I had looked into when he was first diagnosed were just beyond depressing, I guess a lot of it, not so much now. Even now, I can still see a funny side to a lot of it, but I used to see a lot of the funny. That's just my disposition, I guess. But I would see quite a lot of a funny side of the things he was doing, and I would write about them. So yeah, that's, I would definitely say. I mean, I use social media. I use Instagram because obviously that's how you guys found me, and I've been using that for, gosh, quite a few years now. But I found that there's not, from what I can see, there's not a lot about dementia as such. I seem to find a lot on Twitter, but yeah, I found blogging really useful. Off the back of that, I think I said to one of your colleagues, I've put the whole lot together and written a book about it, and it has got off, and so who knows what will happen with it, but only because I was so utterly astounded about the depressing literature that is out there for people to read, that, you know, that comes in the list from the doctors. Not one. And my mother was given a list as well, and she said the same thing. God, how depressing are those books? And I said, they literally are doom and gloom. And, you know, and we know it's shit. There's no point sugarcoating it. Dementia is no, you know, it's not fun in the park. But I definitely think it's, yeah, for me, blogging has been a godsend, definitely. And the fact that people have read it who are carers themselves, that's been, I think, quite a revelation as well.
Okay, well, for those of you who are listening, maybe you want to share the title of your book and blog. That's something that we can definitely kind of share to all the caregivers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. I won't give the title of the book yet because it probably involves a rude word, and I don't want to put that out there in case there's some younger people listening. But my page, I've got a website, and it's called Yummy Mummy Holder Blogs. So yeah, you can find it there. And I don't know whether you'll add it on your Instagram thing. But yeah, so it's on my bio on my Instagram. But yeah, I haven't written for a few years because I'm waiting for my dad to be moved because I don't know where he's going to yet. So yeah, I'm waiting. I haven't seen him since April the 20th, which I know a lot of people in dementia, in COVID dementia land that we're living in, haven't been able to see relatives. They have offered for me to come and see him, but they don't think he'll understand that I can't take him with me. So they have asked me if I could refrain from visiting. So because I have a meeting on Friday with them via Zoom again, like the rest of the world, we're all on Zoom, they're going to decide whether they're going to give me the 2 care homes that he will be put forward to. So yeah, but yeah, if you want to come and follow my blog, come and give us a shout. It obviously Yummy Mummy Holder blogs obviously follows us Mummy Holder on Instagram. So yeah, hopefully you won't find it depressing. I think it's the words I'm looking for.
I think it would be a little piece of sunshine, a little ray of sunshine.
Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, thank you so much for this, and kind of just telling us of your experiences, especially because you were such a late stage caregiver. You obviously have so much insight and just so much understanding of the entire experience. So we, from Memories, really appreciate you coming on board and talking with us.
Thank you for asking me. It's nice to be asked to do something with dementia because people ask a lot of questions and then you think there must be other people out there who want to know. So if it helps somebody out, like I say with the blog, I've had people email me before and say, oh my God, thank you so much. And I think, yeah, because you're not alone, but they're all different. Every single person I know who's got dementia, they're all different. And not one person am I yet to meet who says, oh, my dad does that, my dad does that. They've all got something that, makes them, but I suppose that's what keeps the world turning, doesn't it? Look, everybody's unique. So, but yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me because it's been nice to talk about it for a change rather than write about it.